Can you start recording?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Today we discuss a psychology and history related subject. We are honored to have Professor Raj Somadeva with us. In today's discussion, we intend to talk about King Seethawaka Rajasinghe and highlight some psychological and historical facts. First, I would like to do a brief intro to the subject and then give Professor Somadeva to tell us more about King Seethawaka Rajasinghe. He's an expert on this subject. Only thing is, do you see my presentation?
Yes, we no. At the moment, we are seeing your desktop, not the presentation.
Okay, let me share it now. Do you see the presentation now?
Yeah. Now we can see it. Yes.
Only thing is, I can't go to the large mode. If I go with, then it won't. There's a small tech problem, so I will try to roll up like this. So today's the topic is King Seethawaka Rajasinghe, the monarch who suffered from PTSD, and we are highly honored that we have Professor Raj Somadeva, who is an expert in history, and he had done extensive work. So, King Seethawaka Rajasinghe, was he a villain or a great king? So, King Seethawaka Rajasinghe, the 16th century monarch, he came to the battlefield at the age of 16, and he fought against the Portuguese invaders and witnessed many deaths and destruction. So he was a fearless fighter, and he had very good war tactics. And that time he was fighting the Portuguese war machine. They were the superpower. At that historian, he compared him with the Hannibal, who fought against Rome. So in 1566, the Battle of Mullaria took place, and Tikri Bandara fought against the 16th century superpower Portuguese war machine, and he massacred the Portuguese army. And in the latter stages, King Seethawaka Rajasinghe exhibited battle fatigue, and he had sudden outbursts of anger, unstable emotions, alienation, deep suspicion. Following mere suspicion, he started killing his generals. Especially, he poisoned his right-wing man Vikramasinghe Mahasenimi, and also he killed Veerasundara Bandara, Konakappu Bandara's father. These generals helped him in numerous battles. And he turned against the religion. Professor Raj Somadeva would highlight these facts. And he killed his father. Rumor says that he killed his father. If he had killed his father, this is a very good indication of emotional anesthesia in post-traumatic stress disorder. And there was a drastic personality changes. And Portuguese historian Queiro says that King Seethawaka Rajasinghe poisoned his siblings. So we're going to verify this from Professor Raj Somadeva. And according to Mandaram Puerta, he destroyed Buddhist temples. And the historian Ribeiro says that he did a lot of atrocious acts and turned against the religion. So you can see this is the royal palace of King Seethawaka Rajasinghe, and he had an accidental death. I think after losing the battle with Konakappu Bandara, he fell down and he there was a bamboo prick pierced his leg, and I think he either died of septicemia or tetanus. So this is the King Seethawaka Rajasinghe's tomb. So let me, before giving to Professor Somadeva, let me tell something about post-traumatic stress disorder. There must be some people who are wondering what is PTSD is. It's an anxiety disorder. It's a cluster of psychological symptoms that can follow a psychologically distressing event. So typical symptoms of PTSD occur after recognizable stress or traumatic event that involve intense fear and horror. So PTSD denotes an intense, prolonged, and sometimes delayed reaction. So these are the events that can cause PTSD: military combat, violent personal assault, terrorist attacks, torture, incarceration, POW situation, natural or man-made disasters, and others. I think it goes to more civilian setup. And these are the symptoms of PTSD: hyperarousal symptoms. They re-experience their traumatic memories as flashbacks, like intrusive memories, nightmares, and they have symptoms of avoidance. I think if King Seethawaka Rajasinghe suffered from PTSD and he turned against religion, is a symptom of a certain avoidance. It's a form of reaction formation and emotional numbing, and they can't feel happiness, and also they are very, very non-reactive to the positive occurrence, and also they have restricted emotions, and they are feeling detached from others and emotionally numb. So these are the other common symptoms of PTSD: hostility. Indeed, he was a very hostile character. He had unstable emotions. Sometimes he used to go into rage, and they have guilt, shame, self blame. Probably, if he had killed his father, he had self blame and guilt. That's why he turned to Buddhist monks, but Buddhist monks gave him a negative answer, and then he turned to uh, Aritaki Vendu, who was a Shiva, or he was a Hindu. And we don't have any evidence whether he did substance abuse at that time. Whether he was drinking wine like the last king of the Candian kingdom, and reduced motivation. Finally, he was very cynical about the fights, and he didn't become a very good strategist, and he lost some battles. Negative self-image, depression, and hopelessness, reduced life interest, suicidal thoughts. We don't see any suicidal thoughts in him. So problems with intimacy. And rumor says that he poisoned some of his siblings. So we're going to verify it from Professor Raj Somadeva. And feelings, mistrust, and betrayal, big time. Because he started suspecting most of his right-wing men and started killing some of these people. And cynicism was there, and revenge fantasies. So we see most of the PTSD symptomatology in King Seethawaka Rajasinghe, and these are some of the comorbid conditions of PTSD. So some years ago, an American writer, Ethan Watters, he wrote a book called The Globalization of the American Psyche. So he wanted to say that post-traumatic stress disorder is an American illness, and it's not culture defined. But I wrote one book, that's PTSD Sri Lankan Experience, and try to debunk Ethan Watters' claim. So post-traumatic stress disorder, this anxiety disorder, was there throughout the history. If you read Egyptian scripts, you can find some of the writings after certain battles, the combatants experiencing PTSD symptoms. And also Holy Bible, the book of Job, you can find a lot of trauma there. And Mahabharata, an epic tale in Indian mythology, describes about battle trauma experienced by the combatants. And Homer's great epic, Iliad and Odyssey, narrates about PTSD, especially Achilles. After his best friend Patroclus' death, he goes into rage, and he shows emotional numbing and severe survival guilt. And Buddhist Jataka stories. This book I wrote in 2005 to highlight some of the DSM based psychological ailments were discussed in the Buddhist Jataka stories. And there's one Marana Bhiruka Bhikshu. He had some mortal fear, so probably these bhikkhu had certain PTSD related symptoms. And Shakespeare's work, if you read Lady Macbeth, you can find she was suffering from nightmares, sleepwalking, and compulsive hand washing after trauma. And Cervantes, he's because he returned as a tired soldier, then he wrote the book Don Quixote, and Don Quixote has vivid hallucinations. Also, Ivan the Terrible, he was the Russian Tsar who was his character was somewhat similar to King Seethawaka Rajasinghe in the latter stages. In the Western world, first PTSD reactions were vividly described in 1666 after Samuel Pepys' diary. This is the Western notion, but then I found some of the writings of Queiroz and some of the historians. Then I wrote, we have a PTSD type of reactions recorded in during 1581 to 1593. So I wrote a research paper, and then the U.S. Army Foreign Military Studies Office, they published it because it challenged the Western notion that PTSD recordings came in 1666, but from our part of the world, we had information prior to them. So PTSD, it was called railway hysteria in 1800s, and during the American Civil War, they found some soldiers. At that time, they didn't use the term PTSD. They used the soldier's heart because they had some cardiac-related symptoms. And Sigmund Freud used the term traumatic neurosis. He had a number of patients in his writings, his case studies. You can see a number of patients who suffered with PTSD. And the World War I, they called it shell shock. And and temporary blindness or deafness. And the British Army diagnosed 60,000 shell shock men. And in 1980, the PTSD term came with the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or we call it DSM. So this is the brief history of PTSD. Like 1869, it was called neurasthenia, then soldier's heart. The famous neurologist Pierre Janet, he used the word dissociation. In 1900s, effort syndrome, and also chronic fatigue syndrome. Sigmund Freud used traumatic neurosis, and during the World War I, shell shock, World War II, combat fatigue. And during the Vietnam War, they did a lot of research on PTSD. Until 1993, World Health Organization did not recognize PTSD as a separate diagnostic entity. So they were so late. So these are the conditional risk of PTSD and associated problems of PTSD: self-harm, risk of suicide, risk of violence and homicide, domestic violence, substance abuse, cruelty to children. And there's another factor I want to verify from Professor Somadeva. According to the historian Ribeiro, the King Rajasinghe killed 500 children and took their blood and washed the religious statues. I don't know. We'll ask from Professor Somadeva whether it's true or it's a myth. And PTSD can cause complex condition. We call it CPTSD. And also PTSD can cause brain changes. So it's not a simple anxiety condition. It affects the brain chemistry and brain structure. So I work with the Sri Lankan military with Dr. Neil Fernando, consultant psychiatrist. During that time, we were finding a lot of Sri Lankan combatants with PTSD, but some of the mental health specialists mentioned that there's no PTSD in Sri Lanka. They also had the view that the PTSD was an American illness, but our study indicated that 30-year war in Sri Lanka had generated combatants with PTSD. These are some of the nightmares and flashbacks of PTSD patients. So even the natural disaster like tsunami, we found PTSD patients. And we 2002 to 2006, we interviewed 824 members of the Sri Lanka Army who were in the active service. And we found 56 combatants with full-blown symptoms of PTSD. So that is my brief narrative about the PTSD and King Seethawaka Rajasinghe. So now I would like to invite our renowned Professor Raj Somadeva to mention something about the historical facts about Seethawaka Rajasinghe and whether the things were exaggerated or he was a sort of an enigma, whether he was a cruel person or he was a warrior then turned into uh, uh, sort of a man who didn't trust his people. Then he had a very unbalanced emotion. So over to you, Professor. Shall I stop sharing the screen, Professor Somadeva? Okay. Hello, can you hear me? If you can hear me, kindly raise your hand.
We can hear you, but we can't hear Professor Somadeva.
Yeah, Professor Somadeva, I think.
So I think that you can hear me now.
Yes, yes, sir. We
Okay.
can hear you now.
Yes, sir,
Right.
we can.
If you have a presentation, I
No,
will
no,
back
no,
up.
no, no, no. Just I want to participate.
Okay, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Ruwan, you can proceed.
Yeah, so I did the basic intro. Hope you heard my presentation.
No, no, actually, I missed your thing due to a technical failure here.
Okay, so let me highlight some of the facts. So,
Right.
what I was telling, King Seethawaka Rajasinghe, he suffered from PTSD because he was a warrior who came to the battlefield at the age of 16,
Mm-hmm.
and he fought against the Portuguese war machine. That time they were the superpower, and some of the Portuguese historian compared him with Hannibal.
Mm-hmm.
And in Mulleriava battle, he wiped out the entire Portuguese army. And in the latter stages, he had sudden outburst of anger, unstable emotions, deep suspicion. And out of suspicion, he started killing his generals like Vikramasinghe Mahasenimi and Konaku Bandara's father, Veerasundara Bandara, and turned against the religion and killed his own father. We want to verify this about from you. And there were a lot of personality changes. And Portuguese historian Queiroz says that Seethawaka Rajasinghe poisoned his siblings. And also Mandaram Putta says that he turned against the Buddhism. And Ribeiro claims that Seethawaka Rajasinghe took their blood and washed
Right, right.
the icons. And so I spoke about his death. Probably he died due to septicemia or tetanus.
Mm.
And just I in the last few days, especially unstable emotions. So most of the symptomatology tally with Seethawaka Rajasinghe's character in the latter stages. And about Ethan Watters, the famous American writer, said that PTSD is an American illness. So I tried to debunk his theory, and there I mentioned about PTSD and in my book, which I wrote in 2005, this Buddhist Jataka stories and PTSD, there was a and I see certain similarity between Ivan the Terrible of the
Yeah.
Russian Tsar and six. Soon after the Great Fire of London, in Samuel Pepys' diaries. But I challenge this idea, and I mentioned that we have some PTSD related reactions were recorded in the during King Seethawaka Rajasinghe's time, and that research paper was published by the U.S. Army Foreign Military Studies Office, and PTSD was scientifically studied after the World War II. Even Freud knew about PTSD. Even although he didn't use the term PTSD, he used traumatic neurosis. And in 1993, World Health Organization recognized PTSD as a separate diagnostic entity. And when I was working with Dr. Neil Fernando, consultant psychiatrist at the military hospital Colombo, and during the war, we found a lot of soldiers with PTSD symptoms, but mental health, especially some of the mental health specialists, were sort of skeptical about that. They also thought that PTSD was an American illness, but we found a lot of patients. These are their flashbacks, and even after tsunami disaster, we found PTSD. So we studied. From 2002 to 2006, we interviewed 824 members of the
Right.
combatants who were in active duty, and we found 56 combatants with full-blown symptoms of PTSD, and we published our paper. So now the military identified PTSD as a sort of battle trauma. So we would like to ask you these questions: whether who was Seethawaka Rajasinghe, this king? Was he a sort of a cruel king, or he was a tactician? Then later he had these personality changes. So over to you, sir.
No, actually, I want to say something about your argument and your identification. It's marvelous and it's fabulous. So
Thank you, sir.
the thing is, so I have already mentioned about the Rajasinghe the first in my History Unlimited series at a great length, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And about there is a great memory still surviving among the ordinary people around the Seethawaka area. So they considered the Rajasinghe first as a god called
Mm-hmm.
Rasing
Racing the yeah.
Yes, Racing So the people elevated that the memory of that character to a god. It signifies a sociological aspect of the history, how history feels to the common layers of the society. So what you have raised, what you have pointed out in your presentation is true. So every historical aspect and social aspect, we can preview it through a scientific and philosophical point of view. So if we in a sum at the end of this presentation, if we verify, or if we raise a issue saying that the Rajasinghe first felt a mental disorder, it will be adversely affected to the beliefs, and I think you can understand what I'm saying.
Professor, here I want to mention one thing. It's actually PTSD is an anxiety disorder. It's not a form of psychosis.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a form of, according to Freudian terms, it's like a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
neurotic condition, because we all have various types of
Yes, yes,
neuroses
yes,
with
Ran.
us. So
Yeah,
what I'm saying is, it's
yeah,
not a mental patient, but following the battle trauma and exposure to, these traumatic
yeah.
conditions, his psyche
Yeah,
changed.
Ruwan, it's true. It's true. It is scientifically, it has very good weightage. Yes, during the history. So
Professor, excuse
we
me.
have to, during the history, we passed. Uh, yeah.
Excuse me, Professor. It seems,
Hello, Shirani.
yeah, it seems to time is running out. If disconnect,
I
please log same link.
Okay, we'll do,
Okay,
and we'll
okay,
do the
okay,
recording.
okay, okay, Sasha. Okay, okay, okay. No, actually, you're right. You're right, Ruwan. So, not only the Rajasinghe first, even if we probe the character and the behavior of the Sri Vikrama Rajasinghe,
Mm-hmm.
and Sri Parakrama Narendra Singh, their
Mm-hmm.
character also reflects some, abnormalities of behavior and thinking,
Mm-hmm.
Though, for example, if we take the name of Sri Veera Parakrama Narendra Singh, so
Mm-hmm.
common people identified him as Sellang Rajuru. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Sellam Niridu. They use the term
Sellam
Sellam.
Nirindu.
Am I
Yeah,
getting?
in the common parlance, it comes Sellam Rajuru. Sellam Nirindu is a sometimes elevated
Mm-hmm.
status.
Professor, I
So,
want to ask something, but this is a sort of a very, very, I don't know, it's a thought provoking question.
yeah.
Because some time ago, a few years ago, I wrote homophobia in the Sri Lankan society.
Mm, mm,
So, in that paper, I mentioned about the Sellam
mm,
Nirindu. It says that maybe he had certain LGBT
mm.
behavior,
Right,
because I have great respect for LGBT people.
right.
I don't consider it as an abnormal behavior or mental condition, because in the Western world, this form of uh, it's being identified, it's being accepted as a normal social behavior.
Right.
So this particular king had he was keeping some young boys.
Mm,
I
mm,
think Robert Knox writes about that.
mm,
And
mm,
is he the person who had problem with Daskon?
Okay.
So
So the story of Daskon is quite different as it comes from the literary evidence. Normally we thought the King Narendra Singh had punished him and killed him, but it's not a true
no,
story.
here, Professor, sorry, I'm
Yeah.
deviating from
So
King Seethawaka Rajasinghe. What I want to ask is whether the Sellam Neridu had gay inclination, and he sort of neglected his queen. So that's why she shifted to another person. Uh, could we bring this theory into light, or is it sort of we don't have any historical
No,
evidence
actually,
to
we got some very
say
rare
that.
references about the Daskong and Pramila and the reaction made by King Narendra Singh. But it
Mhm.
says that the story of the love affair between Daskong and Pramila, it was a creation, it was a myth
Mhm.
created by
Me-
a monks and Leuke Disawa. Okay.
Maybe out of
That's
jealousy they
right.
wanted
That's
to
right.
slander
That's right.
him,
That's
just to
right.
break him. Yeah,
That's right.
these
Uh,
things have been happening in the Sri
yes,
Lankan
yes,
kingdom
yes,
throughout,
yes.
like
So we have to be
always.
careful.
It was a
Yes,
power
yes.
struggle.
Therefore, we have to be very careful when handling the historical messages directly came from the historical sources. So we have to be
Okay.
a little bit cautious to handle those things along the historiographical methodologies. So if you came back to the Rajasingha's the first case, so it's a very peculiar character. So he ascended to the throne during a very critical period of the Sri Lankan history. So in the
Mm-hmm.
first time we experienced the influences and interactions with European nation, and they had a very different and very aggressive objectives in working in Sri Lanka. So Rajasinghe and his father had to fight with these infractions and consequences and all sort of things. So during such a chaotic socio-political and religious situation, so the Rajasinghe the first ascended to the throne. So he had to face with those challenges uh, with different other calamities arose internally in the Sri Lankan society. You know that during that period, so there was a power nucleus in the up country, in
Mm.
Kandy, and in Raigama, and Kotte, the three power nucleus were there, and Rajasinghe had to fight. Rajasinghe had to interact with all those three uh, power nodules, plus the interaction with the powerful European nation. You know, so in a such a situation, we can assume how a person can uh, uh, make his mental makeup and along and his behavior. So you're right.
Mhm.
So he can, after a battle and during the battle, he can act as a sort of uh, unusual, aggressive, bold character. It's quite right.
And
So we have
Professor,
to.
sorry for the interruption. Did he poison his siblings? Did he kill his siblings to gain power, commit to
Oh,
power?
so history says that, you know, but we have to be careful. We have to be careful. So the history written by a person,
Hmm.
so he has
His own biases.
his own biases and contemporary
Mm.
sociological ideologies and everything can influence the author of a historical record. So we have to be careful. So we have to go through the everything we says depends on Chula Vamsa and some Rajavaliya
Hmm.
and the historical records such as those. But we have to go through the records kept by European historians. You can get very important information from those foreign records about the characters such as the Rajasinghe,